Hi there. Okay, we are going to do class number two, and I love this one. This is some of my favorite combinations of melt moves, a little biomechanical stuff from Katie Bowman, and then we're adding a little bit of Pilates too to give you a nice, well-rounded workout. Okay, so let me just switch the position of my camera and we're going to move on to a foot treatment. So get your soft ball. You're also going to need either the Melt Method half roller or you could use a rolled up towel. So let's go ahead and have you start by standing and we'll do a quickie little mini foot treatment. I'm going to stand with my feet about hip distance apart. My arms are by my sides. And I'm just going to soften my eye gaze or just let your eyes close and come into the body. Just take a moment to get settled. And I want you to notice if one foot feels like it's a little heavier into the floor than the other foot. Ask yourself if you're bearing more body weight towards the balls of your feet or back on your heels. Notice if the body weight is on the outside of your foot or more towards the inside. Remembering that that's your connective tissue that's kind of stuck there. And if you're feeling weight on an area of the bottom of the foot, it's going to translate that energy throughout the body and cause misalignments and compensation. Traveling up from the foot up into the shin and then the knee, and noticing if the knees feel like they're pulled back in hyperextension. And if they are in hyperextension, then come up to your quadricep muscles and back to the glutes, and you'll notice that those muscles are held under tension. You can go ahead and open up your eyes, and we'll start with just a mini softball treatment. I'm taking the ball right into the center of my foot, and I'm going to tip my body weight from side to side. I do this for about, 30 seconds or so, just softening through the plantar fascia, just finding tolerable pressure, and always reminding you that if you feel pain, take the ball back to position number 5, do a position point press, and come on back and try this position at number 1 again. Okay, both feet are going to settle down into the floor. Bend your knees, rotate your spine, swing your arms, all with nice fluidity. There's nothing that you're jarring. It feels just very easy and comfortable. Come on back up when you're ready. So I'm just going to slide that ball back to position number 5. So that's not on my heel, but back on that arch. Take a focused breath and press. And then come back onto the left foot to start gliding on the right. Coming across position number 5, moving the ball onto your heel, and then coming back to 5. Put a little bit more body weight on there, give it a good shear. And then hold the foot still with weight on your foot at position number 5. Take your foot off the ball and bring the ball back up to the big toe mound, where I'm going to put that ball right underneath the knuckle of my big toe, put some pressure on it, and I'm going to pull my big toe a little bit over to the left, push down on my foot, and pivot on my heel. Release the ball and do it 2 more times. Even though this feels so good, you could do it all day. I know, right, Nancy? Come on back to position number 2 at the big toe mound, and let's rinse down the bottom of the foot. I'm going to do that pressure under each knuckle and then roll the ball down the length of the bone. I'm looking across the room as I do that. And then once you've done each knuckle and long bone, just do it a few more times, just pushing the fluid back towards the heel. Once you've completed the rinse, you go ahead and do friction. Let the thigh shake to move the fluid up into all the lines of connective tissue. You want to flood the joints and get the fluids to move all the way up into the spinal column. You could take a moment and just assess how that right foot feels, and then go on to the left foot, starting right at position number 1, right in the center of the arch of your foot, tipping your body weight from side to side, and then settling both feet into the floor. Bend your knees, rotate the spine. Just noticing how your body's feeling today, noticing if it has any little aches and pains. Come on back up when you're ready. Let the ball come back to position 5, take a focused press, and then come on back onto the right foot to go into your glide. All the way onto the heel, back into position 5. Little extra weight on your foot and shear. And then hold the ball still for a moment and take your body weight onto your right foot to bring the ball up to position number 2 inside the ball of the foot in line with your big toe. I'm going to pull that big toe out a little bit, and then I'm going to pivot on my heel. And that pulling of the big toe just helps me find that grounding force in my foot. I'm going to take the ball from the big toe mound back towards my heel for each knuckle and long bone. Goes right underneath the knuckle. It's not going to poke out between my toes or on either side of my foot. It stays right underneath my foot. And then once I've done it for each knuckle and long bone, do it a few more times. Eye gaze across the room to help work on balance and stability. And then when you're ready, do a little friction. Let that thigh shake. Feels so great. And then when you're ready, move the ball over to the right foot and just do quickie friction one more time. Great, great, great. You could do this every single day. Make sure you've had a nice glass of water before you do the treatment. So from here, I'm just going to assess my foot treatment, assess my feet. This is a rebalancing technique. It helps my body find just its place on the floor, this grounding force. The feet feel very evenly weighted on the floor now. Both feet are evenly weighted from right to left. I scan up my shins. My knees feel a little bit softer, a little bit more relaxed, and I've released tension through the glutes and the quadricep muscle. So we're going to add the calf stretch. This is from Katie Bowman. I have the roller off to the right side, and I'm going to take the right ball of my foot to the end of the roller and settle my heel into the floor. Some of you are going to notice that when you use the half roller, your right calf is so tight that you have to keep the left foot back behind you. And that's totally fine. You just start wherever you're ready. I'm going to sneak my left foot up just a little bit. They're not quite parallel. I still have my right foot's on the roller, but my left foot's still a little bit further back. And I'm just going to acknowledge that my nervous system's really in charge here. And I'm going to let it tell me when I'm ready to take this left foot a little bit further to accentuate the length of the backline tissue over on this right side. So as I step forward, there you go. It just feels a little bit more comfortable. I could not have done this right away. You kind of get this creepy crawly feeling of lengthening through the back line of tissue on the right side, just lengthening through the calf. And ideally, you should be able to take about a stride away from the roller. But if the calves are tight, you won't be able to do that. So just find a place where it's comfortable for you to hang out here for a moment. Some students will end up bending at the waist, and that relieves the tension through the back line. I would rather you step the left foot back to relieve tension if you're feeling like it's a little overwhelming. From here, I'm just going to step both feet back away from the roller and just do a little assessment. And what I notice is that my right foot just has way more grounding sensation into the floor. So I'm going to do the same thing over on the other side. I'm going to move the roller off to my left, take the left ball of the foot onto the roller, and then I'm going to do the same thing. You might notice that one foot feels like it's got a little bit more length and flexibility, one leg, one calf. It just feels like you can move a little easier on that side. This left side for me has always been a little bit tighter. All of my injuries have been on the right side. So the left side has always had the responsibility of maintaining my alignment and my body weight. So I'm going to step forward now with that right foot onto the floor again. I'm acknowledging that I'm letting my body really tell me when it's ready to make that adjustment. If you feel like it's too much too soon, just pull it back. It can feel really intense when the calf is tight and sticky. I like to do the foot treatment first and then do the Katie Bowman calf stretch on the roller or a towel because I'm sending the fluid up into that line of tissue at the calf. And so it can feel a little bit more comfortable doing it after the foot treatment, after you've hydrated the tissue. So again, ideally, I should be able to take about a stride away from the roller, standing up nice and tall, shoulders are over your hips, eye gaze is straight ahead. And if you're the type of person that ends up flexing forward at the waist or bending at the waist, then you're going to let go of that tension. And you're probably doing that because it feels uncomfortable. So see if you can't step back with that right foot instead to alleviate some of that tension. When you're ready, take both feet back away from the half roller and you'll just feel like whoosh right into the floor. It's really fantastic. Okay, so put that roller aside and we'll come onto our backs and we're going to go through the rest assess. I always have a hard time figuring out where I am. Okay. That looks pretty good. Okay, palms are turned up towards the ceiling. And you can close your eyes, just come right into your body. Give yourself permission to take a moment to assess your alignment today, connecting your mind, your body, and your spirit as we connect with each other in this time. Noticing the weight of the shoulder blades. Ideally, they're wide and heavy and flat on the floor, but you might notice that you can feel the bones of the shoulder blades poking into the floor. And you understand that that tells you that there's dry tissue that surrounds those bones. And our job today is to see if we can't just send a little bit more of this healing fluid throughout the body so that we can settle into a neutral alignment. From here, I'm going to take my finger, poke it into my belly button, draw a line straight through my body. I'm looking for the bottom of my rib cage, and ideally, it's weighted to the floor. You might feel like it's lifted away. And honestly, if you don't feel like it's touching the floor, then it isn't, and it's hiked up. You shouldn't need to reach underneath you to feel that. You should just be able to sense it, ideally, through your proprioception. So, understanding that if the ribs are hiked up away from the floor, you're putting a little extra wear and tear on the spinal column and on the diaphragm. From here, take your finger out. Let's travel down into the hips. So, ideally, those cute little butt cheeks are weighted to the floor, but you might notice that it feels like it's the back of your pelvis or your tailbone. And if it's the back of the pelvis or the tailbone, then you have stuck stress in your hips. That's going to limit your mobility, maybe give you some pain in the hips. And then we travel a little further down to the backs of your thighs. And ideally, the hamstring muscles are weighted to the floor evenly, right and left. And you might notice that one feels a little heavier than the other. So just notice how you feel. Just take a little snapshot. The last thing that we do here is that autopilot assessment. There's an aspect of your nervous system that manages your stability and your balance. So we want to notice if we feel even side to side, or do we feel like we're longer and or heavier on one side? And if you feel longer and heavier on one side, then your nervous system's having a little hard time talking throughout the body to maintain that connection with all the joints and the center of gravity. So we just want to have more efficient communication between the nervous system and the center of gravity. Okay, from here, I'm going to roll over into a shoulder, come on up to sitting, and I'm going to come onto my roller. You can use your half roller for this, or you can use the full round roller. I'm going to go ahead and play with my half roller today. I like the half roller a lot because I can really work on establishing that great core connection and not spend so much of my energy just trying to stay on the roller. So from here, I'm just going to start as I always do, just making sure my head is completely supported by the roller. Palms, forearms, and elbows are down on the floor, and the shoulders have dropped back to open through the collarbones. Start by gently rocking your body right and left. A little different here on the half roller, but the spine is connected to the roller, and I just let my body weight shift from side to side. My hips aren't changing, my head isn't changing. It's all through the spinal movement. From here, I'm coming back to center, taking your hands onto your pelvis, the heel of the hands on the hip bones, the fingertips to the pubic bone. And I'm going to go into my tuck where I let my low back curve drop down onto the roller. Notice if you're holding on to any tension in through the legs, or sometimes people will feel it in through the neck. Everything's nice and relaxed. You're just letting this low back drop down. But you can feel now the weight of the thoracic spine where that connection with the low back on the rib cage is on the roller. And I'm going to go into my tilt position, just arching away, feeling that big space now in my back. Everything's still very relaxed. And then I'm going to ask you to go back into your tuck. And I'm going to ease my low back curve away from the roller, but I want to maintain the weight of the thoracic spine on my roller. For me, I feel like I'm still in a little bit of a tuck position. The heel of the hand's a little low, the tips of the fingers are a little higher. So I just reset my hips. And now I feel like I'm more level from the hip bone to the pubic bone. And just a couple of breaths as we do our 3D breath breakdown. One hand to the chest, one hand to the belly. Just breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth. Just noticing the movement of the ribs, up to the ceiling, down to the roller. Hands to the rib cage. Breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth, and noticing the ribs move out wide into the room. One hand to the throat by the collarbones, the other hand to the pubic bone, feeling the length of the rib cage. And hands onto the belly for the 3D breath. Inhale and exhale, sinking the belly button in towards the body, finding that great core contraction. In through the transverse abdominis, which wraps around the body like a belt, cinches in that waistline. And once you find it, you can turn off that noisy exhale and see if you can still find the recruitment of those deep core stabilizers. From here, moving on to the single leg lift, the tips of the fingers are on the floor, the backs of the shoulders are heavy, the elbows and the forearms are off the floor. Everything is nice and neutral. I'm going to take my left heel off the floor. Inhale to prepare, exhale to engage, and then articulate through the ankle to lift the ball of my foot away from the floor. And just notice how you feel. Notice if you have tension in through the quadricep. You're hiking up your shoulders, arching your back. You really want to get a sense of tightening in through the core. But if the core isn't firing as well as it should, you'll compensate in other areas of the body to hold you here in this position on the roller. Settle the left foot into the floor and let's try it on the right side. The heel comes up on the right. Inhale to prepare, exhale to engage the core. Float that right ball of foot off and get a sense of how your body responds. Go ahead and bring your foot back down and your hands come onto your body. So now I can't use my fingertips into the floor to hold me up. I have to use that core. Inhale. Oh, sorry. Lift your heel up on that left side. Inhale. Exhale, engage, and float. Just notice how you feel, engaging through that core. Go ahead and bring that left foot down. Same thing, right side. Heel comes up on the right. Exhale, engage. Float. And just notice how you feel. Settle that foot on the floor. Return the tips of the fingers to the floor. Nice neutral body. Let the back of the shoulders be heavy. And try it one more time. The heel comes up on the left. Exhale to engage. And float. You might notice you just feel really solid on the roller here. The fingertips can be nice and light on the floor. And go ahead and return. Same thing, right? The heel lifts. Inhale. Exhale, engage. Float. Back of shoulders heavy, not arching your back. And just notice how you feel. Hopefully it's a lot easier this time as you turned on the deep core stabilizers. Coming into a little bit of gentle rocking and then ease yourself off of your roller. Just a little check-in here. Palms are turned up towards the ceiling, just noticing that the shoulders have dropped back. Just feels really a lot more comfortable. Shoulder blades are down. Take a finger into your belly button. Just notice where the ribs are. Coming down into the hips, noticing if you're on the butt cheeks, which is all ideal. Back of the thighs, ideally weighted to the floor. Okay, from here, I'm going to come over onto my side and come on up. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is an option. So it seems to me that we have some people in our group that have a hard time negotiating upper back glide and shear, and that's totally fine. We'll just take our time. and let the body tell you when it's ready to move on. Does that make sense? So let your body be in charge, not your brain. So if this particular move is not right for you, I just want you to fast forward through the video and we'll go on to doing some hydration work for the hips. But we're going to do upper back glide and shear if that's appropriate for you. Okay, so I have my hands behind my head and the roller is located below the shoulder blades towards the bottom of my rib cage. And I want to let my head be heavy in my hands. From here, my feet are a little bit further away from my hips. I'm going to exhale to engage the core, and I'm going to pick my hips up off the floor. I'm going to go ahead and bend my knees a little bit more so the roller is going to move to my shoulder blades. Tuck your pelvis, hold your tuck, and return your hips to the floor. And let your elbows just be nice and relaxed. And when you're ready, engage the core again and let the back of the shoulders come over the other side of the roller. This is an assessment of extension. How far back can I let my spine go over the other side of the roller and still hold my tuck position and keep my head in neutral? From here, I'm going to exhale and I'm going to go to the right side into a side bend. Eye gaze is to the ceiling because I'm extending. And I'm going to ask myself how far over to the right without any compensation, no head turning or hip shifting, can I get my spine to go? Just notice how far. Take a breath into the left side of the rib cage to see if the ribs feel a little tight and sticky. And indeed they do. When you're ready, exhale to come into center, inhale and stay. Exhale and shift over to the left side, same thing. So I'm just noticing how far I can go. This is just an assessment. And I take a breath into the right side of my rib cage to just notice the expansion of the ribs here. When you're ready, exhale, come to center. The next step is to take your elbows and point them up towards the ceiling. And that just helps you get your spine to touch the roller. I'm going to exhale to engage my core here. And one of the things I really want you to think about is flexing your spine. So I want you to think about your sternum and that you're pulling that up towards your thighs. This will help your eye gaze come over your knees. This is the tricky part for some people that are stuck in hyperextension. So let your eye gaze come over the knees and stay here. Exhale to engage your core. Push your feet into the floor to pick your hips up and start to move against the roller. So I'm just pushing my feet into the floor and bending my knees. And that's what's causing the roller to move up and down. And I'm looking for trouble, trying to find that barrier of tissue between my shoulder blades. Once you find something, you can go smaller and smaller until you stop. If you don't find anything, just pick a place. Still holding that tuck, still lifted in flexion here. Send your hips down to the floor and scratch your back against the roller. This is your shear technique. Breaking up that dry and viscous fluid in between the shoulder blades. Come on back to center when you get a chance. Exhale to engage the core, pick your hips up, push your feet into the floor to move the roller a little bit lower down your back towards the bottom of the rib cage and explore the tissue with your glide. Flexing the spine here. Again, I'm lifting my sternum towards my thighs and my eye gaze is over my knees. Looking for trouble here, go smaller and smaller until you stop. Settle your hips down on the floor and give it a little scratch. Come on back to center. Exhale when you're ready. Pick your hips up. Still holding this flexion, I'm going to pull the roller up towards the top of my back. It's not in my neck, but it's very, very high. I'm moving back and forth, always finding something to work on here, smaller and smaller until I stop, sending my hips down to the floor and scratch your back against the roller, not shifting your hips, not turning your head. From here, I'm going to inhale to prepare, exhale to pick up, and I'm going to rinse my back. Letting the roller move down towards the bottom of the rib cage, bending my knees to pull the roller back up. Okay. I do about 3 of those rinses, and then I just take a second to come off my roller because I kind of move out of camera range. And I'm just going to ask myself to come back to that same start position. So I have the roller towards the bottom of the rib cage, hands behind the head. I'm going to exhale to engage my core, pick my hips up, bend my knees a little bit, and let the roller find my shoulder blades. I'm going to tuck my pelvis and let the back of my pelvis come back down onto the floor. I'm going to exhale to engage the core and let my upper back come over the other side of the roller. And I think what you'll notice is that I'm getting a lot further back. So I'm just hydrating that tissue, gives me greater range of mobility here. And I'm going to exhale to engage the core again and come into my side bend. I'm looking up towards the ceiling because I am extended here. I'm also going to give myself another exhale and come a little deeper into that side bend. Taking a breath into the left side of my rib cage, and I'm going to feel the expansion through the ribs. Exhale when you're ready, come through center. Same thing, other side. Exhale and side bend to the left. Noticing that you can get a little bit further here without turning your head, shifting your hips. Exhaling again, see if you can get a little bit more side bend. Breathing into the right side of the rib cage to feel the expansion of the ribs. When you're ready, exhale, come to center, and then we'll just come off of the roller. So that really was the assessment for upper back glide and shear, but I think it's kind of nice to add a rest assess just to come back in and just get a sense of how it feels. Just feels very weighted through the ribs. Okay, so for some of you, that's not really the right technique, right? So you could move on and you could do this instead of upper back glide and shear, but you could also do it with upper back glide and shear. There's nothing wrong with that. So we're going to do a little hydration for the hips, and we're going to ask that you come up onto the roller. I should sit more like that. Okay, so my hands are back behind me and my tailbone is on my roller. Have your feet relatively light on the floor and start to move your hips against the roller. So this is going to be our tail glide and shear. Actually, I think it's just called the tailbone glide. And I'm going to shift my hips over to the left side and do a little bit of work for the SI joint. And from here, I'm going to ask you to do what's called the deep hip. You're going to take your left ankle and cross that over your right thigh. And you're going to lean a little bit more over to the left. And see if you find something to work on in here. Now, if this position is uncomfortable for you, then just go ahead and return the left foot to the floor and just move against the roller with your foot on the floor. So either way. You can shift and circle through the hips to see if you find something. And once you do, you go smaller and smaller until you stop. Take the left foot to the floor. And here's your shear technique, just dropping the leg open. And just kind of hang out and wait for a moment. From here, I'm going to send my side of my hip onto the roller. I'm going to take my right foot back behind me a little bit. My forearm is against the floor, and feel like you've got good pressure on your forearm so that you can support your shoulder and your torso. And I'm going to bend my knees to move against the roller. Just notice how you feel. This is the outer hip, gluteus minimus, medius, tensor fascia lata. If you lean back, you can get a little bit onto the side of the glutes. And you might notice something in here. So just go and explore that tissue, smaller and smaller until you stop. From here, I'm going to go ahead and bend my knee and straighten. This is the shear. And then I'm just going to hang out here and wait. So now I'm going to take this roller and I'm just going to move it down a little bit. I'm going to put extra pressure on this left forearm to lift my body weight away from the roller. And I just want to go just underneath my pelvis to the very top of my left thigh. You can kind of twizzle your body weight around a little bit. That's a word I used, learned in the melt method classes that I took with Sue Hitzman. So I'm just letting my body weight shift towards the floor or towards the roller as I come up with the roller towards my hip bone. And then I shift my hip towards the ceiling to move the roller down the outer thigh. So I'm making a little circle down the side of the leg and up the front of the leg. And you might find something in here. Smaller and smaller, I'm going to go. And then I'm going to stop. And the shear technique is to bend the bottom knee and straighten. And then I'm just going to hang out here and I'm going to wait. Again, if you've got the upper body strength to do this, you'll just push more weight into your forearm and just push the roller down towards your thigh. Now I'm more towards my knee and I'm doing that same technique. I'm letting my body weight fall towards the roller and then I'm going to bring the roller down towards my knee. So I'm coming up the front of my thigh and down the side. And I'm looking for trouble here. Once you find something, you could hold your body here, or you can let your hip come right down towards the floor and bend and straighten. So that would be my shear technique for the IT band that comes from the side of your hip, down the side of your leg, and attaches to your shin underneath your knee. And then I'm just going to hang out here and I'm going to wait. Okay, let's do the same thing on the other side. So I'm going to continue to face the camera. Okay. So from here, both hands are back behind me, and I'm going to move against the roller. So this is the tailbone glide. And then my knees are going to drift a little bit over to the right. So there's this SI joint. We don't do too much here. And then we'll do the deep hip, which is going to be taking the right leg at the ankle across the left thigh. And you just shift a little bit more towards the right, getting into the rotators of the hip. The piriformis muscle is buried deep in there, the gemellus, the obturators, kind of set up like the rotator cuff of the hip. Kind of moving in a little circle, just trying to find some of that dry tissue. Pretty easy for me to find over here. I'm going to go smaller and smaller until I stop. And then I'm just going to return that foot to the floor and I'm going to let this leg kind of open and close. And I'm going to hang out and I'm going to wait. I'm going to ask you to come all the way over on the side. My right leg, the bottom leg, is a little bit behind my body. My right forearm is pushing into the floor to support the weight of my chest and support my shoulder. And I'm bending my knees to move the roller up and down the outside of my pelvis. A little core engagement here is a good idea so that you don't hurt your back. You can roll forward a little bit. You can roll back. So right about there, go smaller and smaller until you stop. And then let's get in there and send some fresh fluid into that system. We're going to break up that fluid here with the shear. And then you'll just hang out here and wait. So I'm going to put pressure on my right forearm as I pick myself up off the roller. I'm just going to move the roller a little bit lower and I'm going to push into the roller. Just start by coming up and down. And then I want you to bring it down. Let your body weight shift towards the roller and come up. Bring your hips back a little bit and take the roller down the outside of the thigh, but don't go very far down. It's just a few inches. So I'm going to let my body weight fall forward as I bring the roller up the front. And then I'm going to shift my hips back and let the roller come down the outside. And I'm doing that because that is the way the fluid flows in those particular areas of the body. Comes up the front and down the side. So you might find something here. You don't have to stay here long. You can just get in and out. Just start to go smaller and smaller until you stop. And then I'm going to bend my bottom knee and straighten. So this is the shear. It's an indirect shear because I am holding the roller still and bending my knee to change the shape of the connective tissue. How's that feel? Go ahead and hang out here. Just let your leg be straight and still for a moment. Then I'm going to push my forearm into the floor to pick my hips up, and I'm going to move the roller down towards my knee. I'm above my knee on the side of the leg. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to pull up. So I'm going to come up the front of the thigh and down the side. So I'm making a little bit of a circle. If that's confusing, then just let it come up and down on the side. Looking for trouble here, smaller and smaller until you stop. And I'm going to settle my hip into the floor, come all the way down, and then bend and straighten. So there's the IT band. And then we'll just hang out and we'll wait. From here, I'm just going to use my hands to rinse. There is a rinse technique using the roller, but you have to have pretty good balance and stability and strength to do it. Okay, so we're going to come down the back of the legs with your hands and let your palms come along the side of the leg. Okay, so we're just kind of going down that back line and down the side. That's all I have to do. Okay, so from here, I want to move on and do a little bit of neuro strength. So we're going to use the half roller just for a little bit of a pillow, or if you have a towel, you can use that. So I'm just going to put that underneath my head. Okay. I'm going to stretch this bottom arm out so that I'm not lying right on my shoulder. My left hand is going to come onto my waist and the legs are extended nice and long, as straight as a pencil. And I do 3 things to get myself set up in this position. It's called a tilt, a stack, and a roll. So the tilt is really about the placement of the low back curve. You don't want to do this position in a tuck, although there are some of you that might feel like that would be more appropriate because it's hard for you to differentiate the movement of the low back curve from the thoracic spine. So think about just moving a little bit with your butt back behind you a little, and you'll get a sense of that curve in the low back. But if you're noticing that you're hyperextending, then you're moving too far. It's just a tiny little move. The next part is the stack. So I'd like you to take this top leg and just pull it away. Oh, you know what I forgot to tell you? Just bend this bottom knee. Bend your bottom knee so that your knee is about a 90-degree angle to your body. We've tilted through the low back curve, and now we're ready to stack. So take this top leg and pull that away from you a little bit. You might notice when you pull that leg that the rib cage comes off the floor. Try to keep the ribs down on the floor as you lengthen through that leg, and you're going to get some length here in between the ribs and the pelvis, which will be so nice. If you suffer with muffin tops, this will give you a chance to get a little bit more space here for that tissue. Okay, the last thing that we're going to do is roll forward. So I'm going to let my body weight just shift from shoulder to hip, and that's going to give me more room through that SI joint at the back. So I'm going to exhale and inhale a couple of times to find that core engagement. You'll feel that muscle contract right underneath your hands. And then one more time, just hold that contraction through that muscle, through the core. The ribs are weighted. There's a little space at your waistline. And exhale to engage, hold that. And then I want you to lengthen through this top leg and lift the leg away from the floor. The leg is going to be about as high as your hip. My foot is sort of internally rotated. The leg, rather, is internally rotated. I'm going to bring my leg back slightly, and that will get me out of my quadriceps and more into the glutes and the side of this hip. And I'm just going to wait about, sometimes it's 30, 45 seconds, but you might start to notice that my leg kind of vibrates a little bit. I can see it in the monitor. So from here, I know that I'm ready because it's feeling like it's kind of bouncing around a little bit. I'm going to exhale to engage my core. And as I do that, I'm going to externally rotate my leg. I don't want to change my hips or my rib cage. It's really happening just in this femur bone. I'm going to inhale and stay, and I'm going to exhale to internally rotate. Inhale, exhale, and externally rotate. Inhale, exhale, and internally rotate. Inhale, exhale, and externally rotate. And keep checking on that tilt, stack, and roll. Continue to lengthen through that leg. Let the body weight shift forward slightly, and definitely feel like you've got a low back curve. Exhale when you're ready and externally rotate. Let's just do 2 more of these. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. One more time. From here, I'm going to exhale to lift just a little bit higher. Inhale, stay. Exhale to lower a little bit. So all of these moves are done, and continue to do that. Exhale as you lift. Inhale, stay. Exhale as you lower. They're all done with the exhale and moving. You inhale and stay, exhale and move. And that's because we're continuing to recruit the deep core stabilizer of the transverse abdominis to support the whole system of the body. So all of these deep core stabilizers are working together in harmony. One more time, inhale, stay, exhale, lift. Good, and now from here, I'm gonna lift as high as I can go without losing my alignment. I'm still tilted, I'm stacked, and I'm gonna roll. This leg is back behind me. I'm gonna externally rotate on my exhale, inhale and stay, exhale and internally rotate. If you're noticing that the leg is vibrating, kind of bouncing around a little bit, you're definitely moving in the right direction. You're turning on those deep core stabilizers within the nervous system. One more time. So I'm in internal rotation here. I'm going to exhale and lower my foot to the floor. And I'm going to inhale to bring it right back up. So the preceding exercises were about reintegration of the nervous system and the stabilizers. And this is a repatterning. So I'm allowing movement as I inhale on the way down and exhale on the way up. One more time. Good, and that should feel very warm and through the body. Definitely feels like it's turned on. I get turned on just thinking about it. Just feels very tight and stable. And now the legs are going to be stacked for the clam. So the bottoms of my feet are in line ideally with my butt, but sometimes people will notice that the bottom leg isn't completely touching the floor. And so you'd have to move your legs forward a little bit in order to get that connection of the floor. My hand goes onto my waist, and I'm going to do that same tilt, stack, and roll business. So I have a little bit of a low back curve without thrusting my chest forward. And I want to bring my top hip away from the bottom of my rib cage. So you can see it. It's just a little subtle movement as I bring this hip away. I'll get a little bit of a space at my waist, but my ribs are still heavy. And then I'm going to roll forward a little bit. I'm going to really think about lengthening through this top leg. My left knee is further forward than my right knee in this position. My heels are going to have pressure. I'm going to exhale to engage my core. Without moving my ribs or my pelvis, I'm going to lift this top leg. I'm just going to hang out here for a second. I want to get a sense that I'm turning on the stabilizers in the hip. You'll feel that in the center of the butt cheek. Inhale and stay, exhale. And as you exhale, let this top knee travel forward. Quick little sip of an inhale, exhale, and this knee travels forward as it lifts and opens. And again, you'll see that little bouncing of my leg. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and stay. Exhale and lift. You see that little stagger, that little lift? Inhale and stay, exhale and lower. Good, let's just do a couple more. Inhale, stay, exhale and lift. There's some variations on this, but we'll leave that for another time. Inhale and stay, exhale and lower. So I do between 5 and 8 of these exercises. Go ahead and lengthen those legs out, and then let's move on to a little bit of Pilates. So I'd love to add Pilates to the neuromuscular exercises because it acts again as that repatterning. It just further establishes this neuromuscular pathway that we just turned on. So you'll find that these exercises last for days. You'll really be able to feel that you've got really great hip stabilization. Okay, so we're gonna move on to the Pilates side lying leg lift series. I'm gonna take my left hand into the floor. Notice if you have that tendency to really push this hand into the floor, but try to have a light touch because you wanna really have that work happening in the core and in the hip, similar to the single leg lift on the roller when we're doing the rebalance sequence. It's a light touch through your fingers. So from here, exhale to engage your core. Nice strong engagement. I'm going to lift this top leg on that exhale, and then I'm going to inhale to flatten my foot and lower the leg back down. Exhale to lift, inhale to lower. Exhale to lift, inhale to lower. Exhale to lift, inhale to lower. Only working within a range that I can control. There's no extraneous movements in through the rib cage or through my pelvis. Let's do one more. And then from here, I'm going to come up just a little bit higher than my hip, and I'm going to draw some circles. Again, thinking about the way the femur bone, your thigh bone, is working into the hip socket. So I don't need to send a lot of energy into the pelvis or the rib cage. When you're ready, reverse the direction. Exhale and inhale, breathing through the whole movement, getting that leg to circle nice and even, and release it down. Don't release any tension. You're going to go into the stagger lift. It's an exhale and an inhale to come down. Exhale and an inhale to come down. And think about your inner thighs here rather than your feet. Glue the top inner thigh to the bottom inner thigh. No need to come up very high. Can really feel that work on this outside of the hip. Really feel that core stabilization. That's exactly what you want. Let's do one more of these, and then we'll lift together. So exhale to come up and inhale to come down. Exhale to lift, inhale to come down. You should really notice that work very high on that hip, gluteus medius, minimus, tensor fasciae lata, and even into the glutes. Good. And last one. Okay, awesome. Nice job. Let's go to the other side. I'm saying that to me that I did a nice job. Okay, same thing on the other side. And scooch up a little bit. Okay, so we're going to start with the melt method neuromuscular therapy first. I'm going to take my bottom knee and I'm going to bend that so the knee is about a 90-degree angle to my body. And if I were lying on a mat, the shin would be parallel to the edge of the mat. My hand's going to come onto my waist, and I'm just going to let this leg be heavy and relaxed for a moment. It's going to do a lot of work here in just a second. So the first thing I'm going to do is the tilt. So with my hand on my body, the thumb is right there at my low back. So I can actually feel that I'm already in that tilt position. I don't have to exaggerate that. I'm just trying to find something that's neutral. The stack is when I take this top leg and I pull it away. So I'm lengthening that leg away from the hip. Avoid the temptation to let the rib come up too. You want to keep the ribs solid into the floor. You'll just have a little space at your waistline. The last thing that you do is the roll forward. So let your shoulder and hip come forward. And you're going to exhale to engage the core. Do that a couple times so you really get a sense you've turned that on. You can feel that right underneath your hand. And hold that core stabilization. And then we're going to float this leg away. The leg is up just about as high as my hip. I'm going to continue to tilt, to stack, and to roll. I'm also going to bring this leg a little bit further back behind me, and that's just going to get the glutes on a little bit. I'm internally rotating the leg to start, and I'm just going to hang out here and just wait. What I'm doing is I'm waiting for my body to understand how to turn on the stabilizers of this outer hip. So I'm not compensating for movement. I'm not asking my quadricep to do this. I'm not asking my inner thighs to do this. I'm really waiting for my body to say, yeah, we're ready. We've got that turned on. And one of the ways that I notice that in classes is that the leg will actually start to bounce. There you can probably see it. So the first thing we're going to do is a series of movements where we're rotating the leg externally. Inhale, exhale, and I'm going to externally rotate this leg. So thinking about the way the thigh moves the leg, not the ankle, not the knee. Inhale to stay, exhale, and internally rotate the leg. Inhale, and externally rotate. Exhale, and internally rotate. Continue to tilt, to stack, and to roll. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. Good, let's do a couple more. I'm going to stop here with internal. I'm going to exhale to lower a little bit. I'm going to exhale, and I'm going to lift a little bit. Let's really lengthen through that leg. Give yourself lots of room in between the rib cage and the hips. Good, now come up as high as you can. Don't lose that alignment. Tilt, stack, and roll. This leg is back behind you a little bit. Exhale when you're ready to externally rotate. Inhale and stay. And internally rotate. So every time I exhale, I'm going to move. Good, one more. So you can really see that leg is shaking. Exhale to come down, let your toes touch. Inhale and lift. Exhale to come down. Good, one more time. One more. From here, I'll move on to the clamp. So both knees are stacked. The bottoms of my feet are in line with my hips. My hands come onto the waist. Same business with the tilt, stack, and roll. I'm just looking for a nice neutral alignment through my low back curve. Try not to over extend that, but just kind of keep it nice and neutral. I'm going to let my top leg kind of pull away from my ribs, and that's going to align that pelvic triangle. And I'm going to roll my body forward. When I do that, my top knee is going to come a little bit further away than the bottom knee. I'm going to exhale to engage my core, press my heels together, keep the ribs weighted to the floor, keep my pelvis nice and still, and just lift through this top leg. And you can see it's all ready to go. It's already bouncing around a little bit. Inhale and stay, and exhale to lower. Inhale, exhale, and lift. And as I lift, I'm thinking about pulling this top knee away from my body as it comes up. Inhale, and again, bringing the knee away from your body as you lower. Inhale and stay. Exhale and lift. You're going to feel that tightening right in the center of that butt cheek. Inhale and stay. So think about that as the rotator cuff of your pelvis. So you're really working on that ability of the leg to stay stable inside the hip. Good. Inhale and stay. Exhale and lift. Inhale and stay. Exhale to lower. Moving on to the Pilates. So lengthening through the legs. Love, love, love this. Giving myself more length, giving myself more shape in through the waist. Oh God. And as we hit menopause, right? Isn't that kind of a challenge for all of us? Okay, my hand is on the waist, and I do kind of look down at my legs just to notice that the legs are as straight as a pencil. Hands are coming onto the waist. I'm going to move through the side lying leg series. I'm going to inhale to start, exhale to engage, Lift the leg up as high as you're comfortable. Flatten your foot and lower. Point your toes, exhale to lift. Flatten your foot, inhale to lower. So getting a little bit of ankle mobility in here as well. Lengthening through the calf. I'm so glad we did that calf stretch at the beginning of class. The ribs are weighted to the floor. I'm only lifting as high as I can keep my pelvis and my rib cage nice and still. That space at my waistline stays. It's not moving into the floor. Let's do one more. And then come on back up. Your toes are pointed and you're going to exhale and circle. One more time. And when you're ready, reverse. Exhale and circle. So think about all that lubrication and length and space you're getting inside that hip socket where the femur comes into the socket. Beautiful. And go ahead and lengthen that leg back down to the floor for the stagger lift. I'm going to inhale to prepare, exhale to engage. Shh, lift, lift, and lower. Thinking about my inner thighs touching, not so much my ankles. Nice and strong through the body. Feeling that transverse abdominis engage, but also the obliques, which are kind of maintaining this particular shape in through the body. And really noticing that it's warm and engaged right here in my outer hip and back into the gluteus, which is exactly where I want to work. One more time in the stagger, shh, and both legs up together. Exhale to lift, inhale to lower. Shh, shh. Pulling that belly button in, really thinking about that transverse, that deepest of core muscles that's supporting from the belly button all the way back to the spinal column, getting out of these surface muscles, that rectus abdominis, for instance, but going deeper than that, finding deeper stabilization. Same thing with this hip. It's deeper. And then just go ahead and relax. Whoo-wee. Okay, I'm just going to do a quick assessment on my back. Okay, so palms are turned up towards the ceiling. So for me, my shoulder blades feel heavy, excuse me, heavy and weighted to the floor. If I take a finger, poke it into my belly button, my ribs feel weighted to the floor. I'm definitely on my butt cheeks, and I feel that the back of my thighs are on the floor, dividing my body in half, right and left. I feel very balanced and even from side to side. If you're noticing that the ribs are hiked up off the floor, then what I would do is ask you to go ahead and take your round roller, put that underneath the back of your pelvis, and bring your knees into your chest and just give your thoracic spine a chance to relax and come into flexion on the floor. Because again, sometimes when we do the Pilates exercises, we hyperextend. We don't necessarily mean to, we don't know that we're doing it, but we're hyperextending, and that's what's giving you this sense of stability. And ideally, we want a neutral alignment through the spinal column and working in through those deep muscles of, in this particular case, the hip and the core. Okay, bringing my feet to the floor, exhale to engage to bridge up. One more quick check, and then hopefully the ribs are nice and weighted. Great. Nicely done.